Is my hat staying on?
It looks good. Yeah.
All right. Not that there's even like necessarily a point to these hats other than to just be silly
Yeah.
and fun. And I like that you kind of came up with the idea to
Oh,
yeah.
you're welcome. I have a big ass clip holding this one, so it's not gonna look that good.
It might fall out pretty soon
Yeah.
too. Oh,
Ah,
there we go.
okay, keep it.
All
Tilt your head up a little bit. Okay.
right, we'll see how long it. We'll see
They
how
stay
long
on.
they stay on. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had a question for me.
Oh, when did you first start hearing your inner voice or your inner like voice telling you like how
Like
to do
inner
things or
monologue or like
yes.
um I don't know. Like it's kind of hard to explain because I know I have it and I've been so much more aware of it the last like 2 to 3 years, a lot more the last year where I'm able to catch myself. I don't think I ever saw it as like my like inner person or like my inner voice. I always saw it as my voice. And I'm kind of making that distinction now as I'm kind of learning a lot of different habits that I have and a lot of things I go through and put myself through, thinking that it's my idea when in reality it could be just like a projection of something I'm causing in my head telling me. Like I do remember for a long time telling myself that I had no value. And I know that wasn't
Mm,
me. You know, that I know that's like a voice of something, some trauma, something that happened maybe when I was a lot younger that I wasn't dealing with properly. But I don't remember like an exact voice necessarily. Like it's always been kind of I don't know, I've heard people talk about it. Do you have like an inner voice or when do you remember first hearing your inner voice?
I think as a little kid, the earliest I remember was around like 5. And I think it was just like I had nowhere else to go other than in my head because, I didn't know how to talk to other kids my age. And all I wanted to do was be like, so basically, I went to kindergarten without like knowing anybody there, and everyone there had gone to preschool
Hmm.
together the year before. And so I was like brand new to everyone and the whole concept of school. No one has explained the concept of school to me other than like, oh, you're just going to school.
Did they say anything like you're gonna go learn or this is what all kids do or
I think they did, but I just never grasped what it actually meant
what
that it was work.
did you have any kind of like anxiety when you started going to school before even like knowing what school was like the first few days?
The first day I was like excited because the only image of school I had was like from the novelas. And that was like boarding private school that I would see
They're
them
all like
like go.
cheeky with each other
Yeah,
and
they're all
like
like,
kind of nasty to each other,
yeah.
not very good people to each other.
Yeah. And then they would wear like the school uniforms. And then my parents are like, oh, this is your school uniform. It was just like a plain, like white, like collared button shirt and like navy pants.
Hmm.
They couldn't really be black. They had to be navy, which I thought was weird. But anyway, so like in my head, I was like, oh, I'm all excited to go to boarding school, which I think is school because of the fucking TV that I've been watching for years. And then I show up and then like I don't know what the hell it is. I really don't know what school is. Like I don't know that you're going to go there to learn to read and do skills. And like Um, so like after like the first day of school or during the first day of school, I'm like, I don't belong here. I don't fit here. Like I remember thinking like I need to get out of here. This isn't where I
Was
belong.
it like tough being there or it just didn't feel like you wanted to be there or you just didn't feel like you were supposed to be there?
I felt like I didn't know I was supposed to be there. And like I mean, looking back at it now, it makes sense because I had undiagnosed ADHD and like no one knew how to like my parents were hoping like, oh, maybe she'll learn more now that she's in school around kids her age.
Oh,
Whereas at home, like I barely like
like it took you a while to grasp certain things and I mean your parents were aware but they were probably just treating you like if nothing
yeah,
was there was no issue or anything going on.
yeah. And so when I did start kindergarten, I did start school, I like freaked out because I'm like, I don't belong here. I don't want to be here. No one talks to me. No one's nice to me. My teachers fucking hate me. I don't know why me sitting in the corner over here playing is a big problem. No one explained to me really like this is what's expected of you at school. This is how you're gonna behave. So I just ended up like trying to behave as well as I could so that no one would notice me. And I'm like,
Mm.
maybe I can get by. But I remember that voice in my head telling me, like, you don't belong here. Like, you're not like these kids. Like, I remember like a voice like thinking in my head. Like, I wouldn't say like a voice talking to me because I feel like they were my thoughts.
Mhm.
Um, but like I remember like playing in the playground and like going in the monkey bars, and there was like this monkey bars thing that was like shaped like a planet. And like I would climb up there and like I would feel like, what if I just fell off and like just knock my head to the ground and just nothing, that's
And
the
you would
end.
just ask yourself the question, like,
Yeah,
"Is that what it?"
I would just stare down to the ground from up there and be like, I can just fall off of here and that's it. And like that's like I didn't know that was bad, obviously because I'm a kid.
Yeah, because as an adult, like, I can imagine a lot of people would relate in that you drive on the freeway and those kinds of thoughts are very easily, like, attained where you're like, "I could totally just run into the next lane," like, without a second thought. I don't know if
Yeah.
other people do go through that, but I go through that where when there's, like, a high alert situation, I kinda put myself in that zone for some reason.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, now that I look back at it, maybe I just had intrusive thoughts that I didn't know that they were, like, supposed to be in passing, because
Mhm.
I guess they don't teach you that skill, is that you're supposed to, like, say, "You don't do that, we're okay, move on," you know? And instead of doing that, I fed it so much that I
Yeah.
felt like if these are my thoughts, these are things that are mine, and I'm weird for that, but they're mine. So, what can I do about it? So, I just kept feeding the anxieties and like,
You know, what you're saying right now relates to me a lot too, because I'm starting to remember, like, instances where I made myself feel really bad, and I made myself just feel horrible about, like, myself and who I was, and that was all just, like, my inner voice and these intrusive thoughts that, like, what you just said right now, like, I wasn't able to, like, let go of them, and if anything, for some reason, my mind wanted to, like, hold on to them and, like, wallow in the anxiety, wallow in the sadness. Like, I grew up very melancholy, and I always just thought like, "Oh, I'm just different," but I think I was kind of, like, letting a lot of intrusive thoughts in just because I didn't fit in, like, completely. Like, I was always self-conscious about my weight as a young kid because I was overweight by the time I was, like, 12, 13, and, I mean, most Hispanic kids know your parents are just gonna call you your biggest insecurity.
gordo,
Gordo, of course.
gorda.
Like, I used to have a shirt that had a soccer ball here, and they'd be like, "Oh, is that in 3D?" Like, in Spanish. Like, it was a thing with, like, even because I wore that shirt a lot, so, but it just getting back to the point, I just felt like I had a lot of, like, insecurities, and, yeah, I definitely let them get the best of me, and I, like, kept myself there instead of trying to move forward. I never knew I could move forward. I didn't know there was something to move forward from, you know?
Yeah. And looking back at it, it's like if someone had just told me like those are normal, but you're not supposed to feed into them. You're supposed to bring yourself back. But it's like, and I feel like I showed myself a lot as like a happy kid to people because all I knew what to do was play and like be by myself and play. That like knowing that those were my thoughts back then like freaks me out a little because I'm like, I
Mm.
wonder how many other kids didn't get to express those thoughts and just let them consume them every day,
I
you
mean, I
know?
wonder how many people out there right now. I mean, there's so many things that even in the last year, I realized that I can be aware of that I didn't know I could be aware of. I didn't know there was awareness to be had in that place, and it's
Yeah.
all about what's going on inside my head and like what I say and how I act because of it. So I mean, if me as an adult, I'm coming to terms with it and learning that I have so much more work and growth that can come. There's so many people out there these days that probably need it too. So many kids too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think parents from what I think of parents, it's like I'm not a parent yet. Well, we're not parents yet. Is that you have to understand your kid is still a person on their own and they have those thoughts. They're going to have those thoughts.
Yeah.
And I feel like my parents should have like acknowledged that when they became parents, like, "Hey, remember what childhood you went through? Think about what your thoughts were when
Yeah.
that shit happened to you."
And I think, like, partly, and I don't want to say that everyone's parents are the same, but for most people that I grew up with, our parents came from some sort of trauma, some sort of running from the past in a way where they were just trying to find a better life.
Mhm.
So, like, to that extent, I do understand why, um, not to say that they did a bad job, but they just weren't able to they weren't capable of addressing, like, the problems we were gonna have. They didn't have the tools. They didn't know that it was gonna come up, and we might be here in the future as good of parents as we might be. There might be stuff that our children teach us about that we
Mhm.
maybe didn't do right or that we could have done better. And it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But I do, yeah. Dang, I got lost there for a second.
It's okay.
It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've just been chilling and
It's
enjoying.
been like a hibernating day, which has been good. You need them. I do want to get back to your inner voice, so because we were having a conversation about it, and I think it's a good topic to explore. Um, so was your inner voice always? Is it always negative?
I feel like that's what it enjoys exploring, because that's what I enjoy exploring a little too much when I was younger. But I almost, like, knew it was incorrect, and I didn't know that if I enjoyed it, it doesn't mean I'm psychotic, because I actively don't really wanna hurt people.
Hmm.
I don't actively, like, want things t or anyone to be in pain, but, like, in my head, it's like, it's more logical for me to be in pain than other people,
Yeah.
and I don't know why that is, like, the concept of someone else suffering, like, freaks me out, but if I get hurt or if something happens to me, I'm like, "Oh, walk it off, it's fine,
Yeah. I can
no
relate
big
too.
deal," and that's kind of like, someone told me that was, like, depersonalization, derealization, where it's like, you're thinking of others constantly so you can survive and feel better about feeling like everyone else is satisfied before you. So, I guess it's kinda like owning a stable and, like, having, like, 7 horses, and then, like, every horse has its problem, and it's like, as long as the horses are fed and happy, you're pretty okay mentally, but if one of the horses is hurt, it's like you're prioritize the horse, right?
Yeah.
But you yourself, like, if you were to, like, get an infection or something, like me with my ingrown toenails, I ignore them. 'Cause I'm like, they're uncomfortable, but they're not that uncomfortable that I'm not capable of doing everything else.
Like, am I bleeding? Is there anything nasty going on?
Yeah.
No.
Like, I think, like, if I'm bleeding or, like, hurting like that, like, I don't pay enough attention to it, and it's really hard for me not to nowadays because I'm trying to be more self-aware and take care of myself a little more.
And that partially because of the ADHD too, where you kind of let some things go when you're like dead set on a goal or
Yeah.
when you're trying to prioritize something else. So if you're prioritizing, hey, I don't need to address this yet, you'll probably won't address it until it's like, oh, I need to address this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with my ADHD diagnosis, like, I didn't really address it, and I've had suspicion since I was, like, a teenager.
Hmm.
But, like, because I did so well in high school, I was like, "You know what? Maybe I just didn't really try hard enough. Maybe I just was really lazy." But the thing is that, like, if you're like, the only thing that motivated me was spite, and I
Mm,
didn't know that was something that people with ADHD use in order to motivate themselves. And it's not really spite towards yourself, it's spite towards everyone else who didn't believe in you or makes you wanna feel like, if someone's tearing you down, you wanna prove them wrong. And unfortunately, that's kinda like where my motivation was in high school. Like, my concept of growing up was just don't get pregnant, just don't drop out, and, no big deal.
pretty easy goals to stand by, I guess.
Yeah, but, like, for me, it was, like, everything around that concept, like, revolved on, like, contradicting myself as well. Cause like, there was points where I did wanna, like, date people, but because I was so scared of being pregnant, I ignored them completely or I like broke
Mm,
it off. But then I would still want to be with someone. I would still want a connection.
yeah,
I would still want a person. And then when I thought I had them, like it didn't work out, which I thought was like, okay, maybe I just don't deserve people. And that's how I stay successful.
no,
Maybe I don't deserve these distractions because the world is telling me like focus, jackass. And then when I focused on like relationships more in school, when I was in college, I didn't know how to manage myself. That I became obsessed with more of like the love interest than I did with school, which was obviously more important. But my brain was like, I'm doing this because I'm deciding to.
yeah.
Eh,
Well, yeah, that kind of, and not to say that you're an addict, but
mhm,
that kind of reminds you of addicts in a way where, like when an addict relapses, especially if they haven't, for example, if someone's they relapse and they've only done like hard drugs, meth or heroin, they got into it when they were young, and if they relapse in the future once they've already gone through rehab and kind of gone through the right process, let's say they relapse to something like weed and they've never had weed, they can easily just overdo it on weed and end up in a really bad place where they can like kill themselves or they can put themselves in situations that are dangerous for themselves. um so just like you, where you didn't allow yourself to have a relationship when you were younger, you jumped into it fully when you were in college, right?
yeah.
And then it became something where, because you hadn't had that experience, it became something obsessive. Or am I describing it accurately or no?
I would say with the rehab stuff, I could add more to it than that because what you said is more like, because I can't help, like, I can't in my head, ugh, I'm sorry.
No, don't be.
Like, being in relationships is almost like a part of something I wanted to be in, but like I knew I had to be healthy about it, but I didn't know how to be healthy about it because no one taught me.
Yeah.
Once I started making those decisions, and so when I started making those decisions, it was like I can't stop fucking this up,
Hmm.
and I can't stop ruining my life as well. That like I guess you're right. It does
Well,
take a while to get into the concept of like getting that dopamine high
and
when you meet new
to that
people.
extent, I think like the description I use is kind of wrong. Like I would say it's like someone that hasn't tried something like edibles just takes a huge cookie or brownie like they show in a movie or something. It's kind of like that, where it's like, well, no one really told you how to take it, and like you just kind of jump in.
Oh yeah, and it's exactly how I mean when I started college, like the whole like party and alcohol thing, like I was already experienced drinking alcohol. Like I started drinking like maybe around 4 years old. And then so like
And
continue
that's just like little bit at a time. I mean, I'm in other countries, it's quite normal for kids
to have a
to
little
drink a little
sip,
sip.
yeah.
Yeah.
But me, I was doing it in secret. And
Oh.
so because I had control of that, and it might explain the anxiety too, of needing to hide things like the alcohol. Like
Mm.
I just wanted it for myself. I'm like, this is the one thing that I
I used to
know
do
is
that when I was a kid, but with like chips and with like sodas, and I would just like hide them because I was just full of shame. I would overeat.
yeah.
But sorry, I didn't mean to
um,
cut you off.
we'll get back to that.
Sure, I'm
Yeah.
okay with talking about it.
Yeah. So for me it was like I wanted alcohol. I wanted that. I loved the taste. Like, when people smell gasoline, that's how I feel when like
Like permanent marker or something.
yeah, that's how I feel when I tasted alcohol. I'm like people would be like, "Oh, I need a chaser with that." Or, "Oh, I need to like flavor it down." I'm like, "No, don't take away the
Like
flavor of the alcohol."
that's what
The
we're here
fuck?
for. What do you
I was like,
mean?
"I need pure ethanol today." Like, fuck off,
Get
like
me a Purell wipe. I'm gonna just start sniffing that shit.
so because I was already drinking, I was kind of experienced in like getting, tipsy by
Hmm.
myself. Like when I started seeing other people drink, it like worried me that they would like go a little hard when they would be out at parties by themselves or with their friends or around strangers.
Yeah.
And it's like no one taught them how to drink. They just went for it. They just like pound it down, especially like younger women. Like they're like finally letting loose. They're going out, they're going to college. And like this is what always worried me when going to those parties. It's like one bitch is gonna get drunk and I need to find a way to get her home safe, or she needs to find a way to get home safe. Everyone needs to be safe because I'm not fucking around with danger here. no sex predators, none of that. And then so
They're out there.
absolutely, especially at college parties, it's
Yeah.
depressing.
I mean, even I'm like,
They're all
I
seniors who
oh,
they're all
well, I was gonna say even like music festivals, I've seen some really really crappy behavior from like guys following women, and especially women that seem like they're intoxicated. Like there's been a couple situations, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it to you, where
yeah,
I go out of my way to tell a woman that got upset at her friends when they were drunk, and she's storming off, and I'm like, hey, just letting you know, like literally for like the last 10 minutes, this guy's been kind of like eyeing you
following
guys
you.
and following you guys, so don't be away from your friends right now. Like as much as you guys are upset at each other. And as I was telling her that, her friends came back for her and like, come on, stay with us. And I was like, I'm glad. I feel better that I said something.
Yeah, I mean, you
But yeah,
prevented something that could have been bad.
yeah. And hey, it could have been nothing too.
Yeah,
But at the same time, like I
peace of
do
mind.
peace. Yeah, I mean, and it's never a bad idea to stick with your friends in a situation like that. Like I do see really weird behavior at festivals. People just kind of go all out sometimes. But then there's predators, just like everything. Anyways, I didn't mean to distract from what you were saying.
No, it's okay. With that being said, of like me drinking and having sort of like an idea of how to control my drinking in a way, with people who were out there drinking, like pounding everything down all of a sudden because they suddenly had access to it. Like I suddenly started having access to people who might want to date me or might want to be with me or might want to do something else. But the thing is, in my head, I was just so, I didn't even know what I wanted relationship wise. I had no idea, but I was like willing to like make myself like available for it. And it was like
Mm.
pretty pathetic.
What do you mean by like what makes you feel like it was pretty pathetic?
A lot of it. I was really bad. I was really cringy back then.
Oh, okay.
And it was just really
I'm sure I was too, by the
like
way.
I was like texting people like even after they had already basically been done with me, like, hey, did you want to hang out? Or like, or they would be like, oh, let's not in fact go on that first date. And then later on I would hit them up like, hey, did you still want to do this? And
Oh,
like it was sad.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've been there in a similar situation in the past. Okay.
Yeah, but for me, it's like in my head, it's like I gotta be the conquistadora because I'm like, if I want this, I'm like, I missed out on all of this in high school. Like, I'm learning these lessons now, and then I did, and I learned them the hard way. And
I want you to know that that's the reason why I proposed to you,
why?
because I knew you were a conquistadora and I knew you wanted to propose to me, and I was
Oh,
like, I'm gonna propose to her. I'm not gonna let her propose to me.
I gotta do it for
I
her.
mean, it's no toxic masculinity in it. Like, it's not like I'd be emasculated, but I'm like, I've always wanted to propose to someone. I'm not gonna propose twice to anyone, like unless we're doing like a redo wedding or something. Maybe I'll propose to you again.
Where I get to wear a black dress, yes.
Yeah. Anyways,
So
sorry.
anyway, so because of that, like my inner voice was always telling me about like you're not experiencing this, you suck. So it would give me self-esteem, but then the other side of me that like wanted that excitement was always pushing and pushing even though the voice was telling me to fucking stop. And so sometimes I do think that inner voice is necessary and like preventing you from getting further hurt. But it's like with the ADHD and like that chase for like awesomeness or for like people to like stimulate you or like people you might be into, like you'd do anything for it in a way. It was
I mean,
depressing.
I didn't know that's what I was doing for so long, but it makes sense because I mean, my friends these days are all like, "You're such a nice guy." I've heard that for years, and I appreciate hearing it, but like I never considered myself that nice of a guy. But then I started realizing that I've put like most of the people that I know, especially friends and even like random strangers, ahead of myself for so long. Where someone asks something of me, even if I know that it's gonna really stretch me like thin, I'll do it. And like I'll make sure I try to do it. And
Yeah.
then stuff for myself or even for close family and relatives, I wouldn't do as much and I wouldn't prioritize as much. So I think like that's part of the same type of behavior where I just was always wanting to get this stimulation from people, like knowing that I did good and almost like having that validated in a way
Hmm.
when I didn't really need to be doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting. I
Yeah.
can see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Like for me, it's like I really, like as a kid, I really just was looking for that stimulation of people being happy to be around you. And because I felt like no one like around me wanted me around, like my parents. Like I think I was annoying as a kid, but I was also kind of quiet, so they kind of like talked to me because I think they felt bad for me. And so I always had that in the back of my mind. And so when I started growing up as a teenager, like I was like, you guys don't even fucking like me. Like, why do you want to talk to me? Why do you want to
Oh,
know about my emotions? Because you cared about them so much as when I was a fucking
since when?
child. I'm like, you guys scolded me for this. You did this to me. Like, my brain was like going off the rails as a teenager, like just thinking, like, I'm really disconnected from my family. And like, it's not like I want it to be. It's just that I didn't connect with them, like maybe as a baby or as a child as much because I had all these thoughts in my head about like how no one wants to be around me. Like, who wants to be with me? So that was a voice in my head constantly. Oh, thank you. Married.
Yeah.
So like that was my constant voice as a child, and so when people did express like some sort of love or like kindness to me, I thought they were lying, even though that's what I was yearning for the whole time. Like, I remember my best friend Eddie gave me roses one Valentine's Day, and they were like yellow roses. So the intention was to be friendship, you know? And it was
Mhm.
our freshman year, and he was really nice about it. He's like, I don't want you to hate Valentine's Day. Because I had been like ranting to him for weeks about how I hated Valentine's Day, you know? And then,
Aw, that's
like,
sweet of him.
yeah. And I like look back at it, I'm like, it was such a sweet fucking gesture. And I thought he was just doing it out of like, this bitch is sad. Like, this is
Like,
what.
almost a petty gesture?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, I feel that way so often. There's so many times where, like, I just say I wanna do something, and you're like, "Yeah, let's do it," and then I'm just telling myself, like, "Is she doing this because I wanna do this, or does she actually wanna do this?" Most of the time, you actually wanna do this,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, with that, it's like I didn't believe it because I didn't work as hard for it as I struggled in school or like
Mm.
as I struggled with other things, you know? When I was in high school, like I struggled to study, you know, and although my grades were excellent in a way, like compared to middle school and elementary school, I was reaching like 3.8, almost 4.0 and in honor classes, AP classes, and I'm like, fuck yeah, you know, but like I'm staying up till 2 a.m. doing all this homework and like getting like carpal tunnel syndrome on my hands from like writing my essays every single fucking night. And I'm like, now that I look back at it, it's like I didn't appreciate those relationships because they were not a struggle for me. And when they were a struggle and it didn't work out, it's like, well, I don't deserve the good ones I do have because I didn't struggle as much for them. So like why does my friend even want to be friends with me if
Hmm.
I didn't even like go as hard for them as I did for the person I was trying to pursue? So I have these anxieties about like what my people and my friends think of me because my brain because I have this condition where my brain didn't function as awesomely as the other kids when it needed to, that like now when I do have easy friendships, it's almost now when I was in college, when I had those easy friendships, it almost felt fake because I'm like adoration can't be this easy. Like getting love from your
Mm.
friends cannot be this easy. Like what the fuck? And the intention should have been it is this easy because we all deserve to be loved and love each other, you know?
So did it take you a while to have a friend that you considered like a best friend, or did you have some that kind of you had to let go of, or maybe let go of you, and you kind of found your group later?
Let me tell you about Edith in fifth
Okay,
grade.
sure.
This poor girl named Edith in fifth grade, she was new, and I like automatically latched onto her as a friend. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's not gonna know I'm a loser. I'm gonna be her friend. It's gonna be awesome. And then we were hanging out more and more. And then I kind of felt her kind of drawing away from me, and I fucking freaked out like a dumbass. And
You're
I'm just
like,
kind
no,
of
my friend.
yeah,
I
and I
don't.
got these like blue dolphin like friendship necklaces at Claire's for some fucking reason to like show them to her and be like, "Hey, let's get friendship necklaces." And I'm just like, "Oh my god!" I look back at it, I'm like, "That was very cringe."
It's
And then
like,
this poor girl, like after that day, like when I gave them to her, she didn't really talk to me.
oh
She's
no.
like, "I'm not your friend," you know. She didn't say that, but like she didn't have to, you know.
Okay, it was never probably said, huh? Like, oh, we're
Yeah,
good, we're friends or anything,
yeah.
and you're just like, We're such good friends. I can't. I just noticed you're wearing that dog head on your hand. By the way, oh, I love it. That's fine. That's kind of cringy. I'm sure I've had some cringy moments like that in the
Yeah, it was
past.
really cringy.
Kids are cringy. Kids are crazy. Kids are crazy.
But it's like I just wanted friends, you know?
Yeah.
And like when you like for example, the easy friendships that I was grateful for as a kid were dogs because the dogs weren't judgy. The dogs weren't gonna fucking leave you. The dog just like fucking like wants to do what it wants to do and have fun with you as a little kid,
Hmm.
you know? And I loved my family's dogs because I there was no requirement from them.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, there was no expectation that they're like, "Are you a good friend or not?" They just know, you know?
They just unconditionally love. I mean,
Yeah.
if they feel love back, I suppose.
Yeah, they don't call you stupid. They don't tell you how lame you look. Like, they don't make you question, like, the idea that you're a person in a way. Like,
Hmm.
imagine dogs treating you better than the people around you treating you. And, like, and because I took things so personally, like, I latched on to dogs more than people. And so it is depressing to know that and like almost like through a normal person's point of view, it's almost like how pathetic like that you had to latch on to dogs. Really, you
I
couldn't
mean,
couldn't
yeah,
make connection with people. You fucking loser.
I
Like
wouldn't
that's
see it
the
as
voice in my
pathetic.
head.
No, yeah, I totally understand that voice. It wouldn't seem pathetic to me. I mean, I see so many people, and I mean, maybe it's just nowadays. When I was younger, I might have thought differently because I was an asshole of a little kid. I'm sure. But nowadays, if I see someone that tells me like I prefer animals over people, I'm like, I get what you mean. Like I totally do. I wish I could just have a farm where I could have a bunch of different animals, rescues, and I feel like I hear a lot more people talk about that these
Yeah.
days, which is just good to hear, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like your inner voice in high school? Like what was that like?
My inner voice in high school, it was I always had crushes on people and I never made a move. Like it was always like I guess it wasn't like an inner voice. It was more like a monologue of like what my life could be with people that I had crushes on and then like nothing would happen.
Yeah.
But like something I always felt when I started feeling more when I was in high school, just like I noticed this like difference with a lot of the people that I socialized with where didn't socialize the same way and like I just didn't get certain things and I was like a little slower in some ways. So like I always kind of thought that I was like on the spectrum somewhere, and like I always felt weird about thinking that because I was like, who am I to even assume I haven't like I have something like that when people are actually struggling with it,
Yeah.
and like going through it. Who am I to even like be like,
Think
oh,
that.
you
Yeah.
think that exactly? Um, but yeah, like it. Some of the processes that would go through my head were not positive. I wasn't like very good to myself in high school. Um, I think the one thing that truly I don't want to say saved my life because I wasn't ever suicidal, but I mean was really emotional for a long time. I had anger management issues. Um, but music is like the one thing that kind of allowed me to express something because I was like the black sheep of the family to some extent. So I didn't have like a family structure that I felt like comfortable talking to. A lot of my friends, because high school, I moved from like a big city by the coast, let's say, to like a city out by the desert that's like a little more desolate. A complete change in high school. So like in high school, I was very introverted. Like I wasn't really very confident. I was in a new place, new people all over. I didn't know anyone. But then like the first people I started meeting were musicians, like people that played, we jam. So I don't know, like my inner voice, it always talked like negatively about me and like the things I wanted to do. But when I played music, I didn't hear it, and that's I think like what I mean by music helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
Um, like any kind of like negative emotion or anything where I was like overthinking something, if I could just get myself a guitar and be in a room by myself and play, like I could make myself feel better. Even if I was like struggling with like learning something and I was like frustrated with myself, it would still take my mind off of any of those kind of like negative feelings. But I mean, the concept of like my own inner voice is kind of foreign to me, and it's kind of sad to say like I never really noticed it as that. Like I've always thought that it was my own like thought thinking that when, like, I do have an inner voice. I do have something that's kind of not pulling the strings, but suggesting what I want to do, and like I'm learning to differentiate it. But yeah, I mean, my own inner voice was very negative, like to myself. That's just my own things I've had to work on. I've met a lot of people that don't struggle with that. They don't struggle with like, and I don't know if that would be depression, anxiety, whatever you want to call it, but I know plenty of people that don't have that kind of inner voice. I know a lot of other people that don't even claim to have a type of inner voice at all.
Yeah, there are people that say it's just they don't hear anything in their heads or they're not thinking like how things are in my head.
Hmm.
Cause like the way I describe things in my head, like when I describe them to people, they're like, "No, I don't think that." And I feel like either they're lying to me, or maybe they just really didn't pay attention to it, or maybe they were just maybe a little more secure. Maybe they had a community that told them to express that voice, that like let them regurgitate that, or like whenever I think about like families who are not my family, where we kind of like in my head suppress things,
Hmm.
like the way my mom and my tia are. They're willing to like express what they're thinking. And in my head, it's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like if I do, like I'll hurt someone's feelings or like I'll make things bad and then I'll have to explain myself. Explaining myself is like the stuff that crushes me when it comes to like family stuff, because it's like if I tell you this thing and you don't get it, it means you really haven't thought about it. You haven't thought about what I say. You just went to being defensive when I confessed feelings to them in the past. And so with my aunt and my mom though, they are able to express those things. And the thing is that us as the receivers, we take it as criticism on our own rather than like thinking about what they're really trying to say.
Yeah.
And then so there are people out there who what I assume is like they are able to express those things as soon as they feel them. For me, it's like I have to process my feelings and I don't even know if those feelings are correct at the end of the day.
And that's where I'm getting to now. Like I'm processing my feelings, like, and that's a big step for me. It's kind of weird to say that too. Like I never really thought of it like that, but I'm getting to a place where I can hear something that infuriates me, depresses me, whatever it may be, and I can like think about it before I actually act on it. And I hear the voice, like I hear what I want to say and what I normally would say, and I'm choosing to just tell myself to not. And I'm choosing to just say no, I don't want to think that. Even if it's if even if I want to like say it out loud right now because I know that that's not actually what I want to do at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I guess my inner voice has always been just very angry, very upset. I don't know why exactly. I mean, I think it had definitely something to do with my dad being an alcoholic when he was younger. Well, when we were younger, he was an alcoholic when I was like, since I was born up until like I was 10 or 11.
Mm,
So I just had a lot of bad times, with my family in that way. We had an amazing time too. Like, I'm not trying to say my parents were horrible, my dad was horrible, but I think there's something there where instead of acting and just instead of just like pondering about what I'm about to say and what my actions are, I just completely explode. And I did that for so long that I didn't know how to do anything else. And even up until this day, even when, we've been dating, or we're married for more than a year now, but before that we were dating for about 2 years. Even the first year that we were dating, as old as I am, as old as we are, like I acted like such a baby sometimes, like, and I was explosive and I did act and say without thinking. And I'm just really grateful to be in a place where that's not necessarily the case anymore. Still comes out with like friends and stuff like that because that was also my personality in high school. I didn't really know who I was. I didn't really know what I was supposed to be. Like certain people thought I was really popular and thought I was really cool because I played music. Certain people didn't give a shit. Like it was just kind of like a mess. But I always just I don't know, like, oh man, I was always just really angry. I guess that's where I'm like ending the like. It's just recently that I've been able to get over a lot of not anger, but just been able to express what I'm actually trying to say in a healthy way. I
mm,
can't even really express it now. It's kind of weird. Like it's so weird because it's so it's so recent that I'm making a lot of these different changes and like attempts at growth.
Mhm.
And it just kind of like, I haven't really said this out loud too much, but like now that I am saying it out loud, it's kind of just shocking to me, like how much I've actually grown in the last year and like how many changes I've actually been able to do with my past behaviors. And I'm really excited because I know that there's like, this is like stable footing and like a healthy foundation to really move forward and like make my inner voice work for what it is and just kind of like
Yeah.
be like a when I've like an observer in a way, you know, like not necessarily the one telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of went on a rant there, but
No, no, it's good. I like that you took some time to process and talk about it and like not hide it.
yeah, I mean, I feel emotional when I talk about it right now. Like, and it's not a sad way. It's not angry. It's just like, why did it take me so long? Where have I been for so long? You know, like it's nice to think about it, like that I'm in the best spot I've ever been mentally. And I still struggle with certain things, but I am like in the best spot I've ever been mentally. But that's just kind of crazy, you know? Like I'm already 30 years old, right? I turned 30 last year.
Mhm.
So it's just kind of weird to me that like I thought I was so much farther. And it's not depressing. It's just it is what it is. I thought I was farther than I am. And that usually ends up being the case in most things, right? Like try to do something and then you end up finding out, oh, I'm way farther back than I expect to be. But that doesn't that doesn't like make me less determined to keep working on it, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. You've been a lot of that too. Like I mean I for people that listen, I hope that it's not they don't get cringed out by like how much I compliment you or you compliment me, but it's the reality is like you've been able to guide me in ways that no one else was able to before, even friends of mine. And I've had really great friends and friendships, like a really good support structure in comparison to a lot of other people, but I don't think anyone's been able to say the words the way that you have for me to like understand what the next step is. And even if I don't understand, you comfort me in a way that makes me feel like, hey, I I will understand. You know, it will be better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it will be better.
Yeah, it will be.
You are better.
We're getting there.
You're doing amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. You too. I mean, you've also like come a long way. When I met you, you were in a job that you despised and like I felt so bad for you. I would feel so worried for you just cuz like, you know, after a while of being in that job, you would come home and you'd be like, "Yeah, I'm just going to like have a drink." I'm like, "Cool." And it became like an everyday thing and then like after a few weeks, you were like drinking a lot and you were like slurring a little bit and like some of the messages you'd send me and I was getting worried. But the whole time I was like, that's her. I'm not gonna judge her. We don't live together. Like, you know, she's at her parents' house. That's where she's living. She's safe. At least you're not out and about, like going crazy. So when you did make the choice to tell me that you were thought you were an alcoholic and you had noticed that before, and now that you're drinking again, it was you still felt that way. You made the choice to stop drinking. I just thought that was so powerful. I don't know if I could make that choice. I did make that choice for a while, but here I am having some drinks every now and then too.
Yeah, but the thing is that like for you it's not like the floodgates open.
Yeah, that's true.
For me it's like
Like
the
once you start
floodgate
drinking, you're just
I'm just at the mercy of my bullshit at that point. Like I convinced myself like, well, I'm not that bad. I lasted this long without it. I'm fine. And then, I may think I'm fine, but the thing is I have lack of control when I think things are fine.
hmm,
Cause my brain is like looking for that dopamine high or that satisfaction that you get after drinking.
yeah.
And like there's a threshold in drinking for me that I would try to reach. And like I'm almost ashamed to think of it like that, but it's like once I reach that threshold, I can just dunk down any hard liquor
And
without any
oh,
problems.
so like I was gonna say, what do you mean by threshold? Do you mean like threshold of being like a point of being so drunk that you no longer care what you're consuming?
In a way, yeah. So it would be like a medium between tipsy and drunk. And then when you get to that medium the way I did, I would look for it and like it would feel like looking
Like
back at it, it's pretty
we
like weird, but like it's when the we moment's happening when you feel like you're on the roller coaster your
Like, you're
nose.
kind of, like, on top of the world in a way,
Yeah,
right in the middle.
yeah, and so any type of drink challenge, when I would hear that, when I would be in that moment, I'm like, "I'll pound down 3 mics right now and 4 shots. I don't give a fuck."
Damn,
And then I would do that, and then I would, like, have, like, huge, like a sippy cup full of, like, whiskey.
damn.
And I knew whiskey was bad for me because I got raging on whiskey, but I still fucking did it. Or, like, sweet tea vodka, I would love that.
That sounds good. I'm not gonna lie. I actually don't like vodka.
Sweet tea vodka with, like, a good lemonade was amazing to me, but I would just drink the sweet tea vodka by itself. So that was the issue, that, like, I loved the taste, and the taste didn't gross me out, and I was an alcoholic. So it's not like I was trying to cover it up with things like beer or, like, chasing it down with, like, Coke. I'm like, "No, I want the disgusting feeling in my mouth because it feels almost like I'm cleansing my palate of, like, having dealt with people all day."
Yeah.
Then so when I would get home from work at that job, I would just be like, "I need to cleanse my fucking palate because this bitch is driving me crazy. I feel so
Oh.
inadequate. I don't feel like I'm even a person at this point." So when I would reach that threshold where I would feel invincible, like that's apparently like like a danger zone for people like us or like
Mm,
me, where it's like I feel amazing, but the thing is I won't feel amazing in the morning. But all that matters to me is that I feel amazing then. And
and you wanna keep feeling amazing.
yeah, and I would do stupid shit when I was feeling that. I would dance, I would just start screaming obscenities, or I would start drinking even more than anybody else. And then
I can imagine you being intense when you're drunk, 'cause, like, the few times I've seen you when you're, like, buzzing, you're way more, like, assertive than you are normally. Not in a bad way necessarily, but, like, I'd be like, "Oh, dang, she's taking the reins."
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's good that I stopped, and I'm glad I did because it was like we've tried sobriety before, and then we've tried controlled drinking, which ended up being uncontrolled drinking, as you can tell now. So
Yeah.
now this is a decision we have to make for ourselves to just not drink.
Mhm.
The most I think I could handle, like if I wanted to drink, let's say it's like my very last day on earth, probably wine. Because if it is my last day on earth, I don't have to wake up with that hangover.
What if it's the last day? I mean, you're not gonna wake up, right?
Exactly.
You might as well just go out with a bang.
Yeah.
Get the worst hangover, fuck it.
No, but the waviness when you drink wine, when I used to drink wine, was just like it felt like I was like on a little boat, like
I
in the
don't
river.
maybe I'm not a cultured man, but I don't like wine that much. Maybe I haven't found the wine for me, but
No one likes wine. I think people just enjoy how wine makes you feel.
people like, knowing the verbiage behind wine tasting, and they'll just be like, "Oh, this is so aromatic."
It's so aromatic. I can taste all the
Are those
aromas.
Starbursts? Liquid form?
Yeah, and so I mean, for those people, like, I get it. You have to do that so you can look pretentiously educated during your wine tours.
Which I've never been on a wine tasting or wine tour. I mean, it would be fun to do.
I've gone to a vineyard once to drink, to not drink. Actually, is when I barely started being sober, and everyone around me was drinking. These bitches didn't even have iced tea or coffee, and it was brunch.
Hmm.
I'm like, can I at least have orange juice? They're like, no, it's for the mimosas.
Oh man, a little caffeine will go a long way.
I'm
Just a
like,
little bit.
I'm like, I'm like, so do you guys just take the sober freaks out into the yard and shoot them or something? Cause like this is a crime.
They
You don't
drown
even.
them in water.
I'm like, they didn't even have coffee.
They
You know?
waterboard their ass.
Yeah, but like the culture around the vineyards to me is
Yeah.
just kind of like, I get it. You want to pay a lot so you can be away from like regular drunks so that you can look like a fancy drunk.
There's a show, I wanna tie back into Inner Voice, but oh, the hat fell off. There's a show called How To with John Wilson on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
He has, like, an episode where it's funny, all he does is, like, observational, reality TV. So he's just like living in New York, takes videos and pictures of people, and makes it into a 30-minute show. There's an episode where he wants to learn how to do wine tasting, and you just get to see all the different explanations of how people explain it. I think it's a amazing watch, but it's kind of going into like the culture of wine tasting and kind of like how people act. Hey, nothing against people that like wine tastings. It's just I don't know. I can see some of the potentials there.
Yeah, it's like for me, like it's kind of like the sorority or like the billionaires of the alcoholic section.
Hmm.
'Cause, like, there's specific alcoholics out there, like, where I can just I'm like, "What's your disguise as your alcoholism?" For me, it was just like, I just enjoy pure liquor, and I'm good. I just love the taste. That's how I drink. I just love the taste, and that was my disguise as, like, someone who was actually an alcoholic.
Hmm.
For other people, it's like, "Oh, I just like to be wine and dined," and, like, I just love wine. It's so
Oh.
delicious. It's amazing. I just drinking wine with my girls. Then there's the brunch alcoholics, and then they are still drinking at the after the hangover from brunch.
They're like, oh, you know how take away a hangover? Keep drinking.
Keep drinking. Yeah.
Get some Pure Light in you, please. Also,
Yes.
something.
Or like my grandpa, he was an alcoholic, but like a daily alcoholic.
Yeah.
He would drink every day. He even resorted to like mouthwash and like
Oh, that's
rubbing
brutal.
alcohol.
Dang.
So like, it's bad when it goes there.
Well, like I
You're
had an
way beyond the
experience.
deep end.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. It has to be pretty bad to start drinking fucking mouthwash. That's crazy. That's crazier than I actually made it out to be when you said it right now. Oh man, that's not even enjoyable. You can't even get that drunk off of it. Like,
You're minty man.
oh no. It reminds me of like one time I went to a friend's house. Like it was not a friend's house, but it was like a family member of a friend was having like a birthday party for his daughter. We went, hung out with all his family. I was really cool with his family, still am. But at the end of the night, we were gonna stay out there, like because it was maybe 2 hours away from where we were living at the time. His one of his uncles was getting mad wasted the whole time, and he was like that guy where everyone's kind of gone and like we're cleaning the tables, and he's still two uncles are like sitting next to each other, and one of them's there because he's taking care of the one that's just nonstop drinking. So like we take him to the apartment that we're gonna stay at, and we're just chatting outside, and as we're going inside to like kind of go to bed, we just hear him like start throwing up, and he has a bucket, and like someone turns on the light, and I just see like blood all over the bucket. So like this man, oh your face, this man started like throwing up blood into a bucket, and it was like mixed with alcohol and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean my friend and his uncles were just like, yeah, it's a daily thing. He just kind of like doesn't stop drinking. And I was like, oh man, this is intense. Like,
That's when it's too normalized and
yeah, well, it's also like I think in Hispanic culture, like drinking is such an identifier for like masculinity. That
in
like most
general for
guys
like being Mexican.
for me, yeah, it's like if you're not drinking. Like one time I went to no offense, but like I went with your family to a party, and like some of your cousins from Mexico, when when they met me and they're like, "Hey, have a shot with us, have a beer." I'm like, "Actually, I don't drink." And like I was honest instead of just being like, "Nah," kind of making up something. I was like, "No, I don't drink because of my fatty liver. It's just my doctor
Yeah.
doesn't recommend it. I don't want it to get worse." And then they're just like, "You're." This was a while back. It's like, "You're not even 30, and you can't handle some drinks." Psh. And it's like this. They just make you feel like you're not a man or like you're not a Mexican.
Like you're not good enough or
And I'm
like
yeah, I remember that, and I was like, "Your cousin better not fucking pull that shit with me again." I was upset, although I would never have done anything. But like it just like upset me that it got under my skin so much when
oh,
it shouldn't have, because I should have been like, "Oh, toxic masculinity." I haven't seen that before.
yeah.
I lived through it my entire life because I was a little bit more effeminate than some guys.
Yeah, I mean, with that, like, I probably would next time, or like maybe if we do go to another party, we can maybe like, if you get that interaction again, maybe just kind of hand them the 9-step brochure to like
I
rehab. Like, hey, buddy, I think you need this.
know a good doctor. if you're intrigued.
like, I think this would be better for you, friend. But the thing is that like people like what you're saying, it's like it's so normalized into our culture. Like, unfortunately, like my one of my closest siblings, it's like they're like, we're Mexican, we have to drink or we have to do this. And for me, it's like,
Well, I mean, I get
no. Por eso estamos como estamos. Like, that's why we are the fucking way we are. That's why we're fucked up. We don't talk
like
about our shit. We
our
drown it.
our parents had to drink so that we wouldn't. Like they dealt with trauma that we haven't dealt with
Yeah.
necessarily. Like, you know, I feel like my father and his grandparents had it so much worse than I have it now. So like I don't know. I feel like the reason most Mexicans pride themselves on being drinkers is because the past in Mexico is full of trauma. Like it's fucked up. It's jacked up. Like
Like, you need to drink to
you
get
need
through
to,
the day.
exactly like, and that's kind of like it might be stereotypical to say, but I do think it's the truth. Like I think there's so much trauma in Mexico just from like historical events in the last 500 years that
Yeah.
it's crazy to think that people wouldn't have that type of identity down there.
No, yeah, and there's such a disconnect to our roots or like, because the indigenous people didn't have anything else but to default to like what they were given.
Yeah, it's
They
like
were given Catholicism, so like now they have a disconnect
yeah,
to their whole land. They only get to hope on like Jesus
it's
Christ or
like, oh,
whatever.
most of your friends got killed. Your wife's, yeah, they're being raped by us. Sorry. And then what else? Oh yeah, you have to be part of this religion. That guy that's nailed on the cross, he
He's
died for your sins. You're because of him you survive. And that's how
not
they
not
leave it.
because of us,
Not because of
because we're
us.
killing your family, but because of him,
Because of
you
him,
got
you're
saved, buddy.
saved. If you accept him in your heart, are you gonna accept him? And that's why we have so many santos in Mexico.
Yeah.
El Santo de la Paz. I don't know most of them, but it's like, of course, like these people that probably spoke out about it and seemed like angels in a time that was just like horrible are probably hailed as saints and like as mystical people in our homeland because they were just they're heroes. They're probably people that like helped out other people, did what normal humans should do, and they're hailed as like saints. You know?
Yeah, and like, it's kind of like what I say about being here in the US. It's like to be an addict out on the street homeless, like it's not a fucking surprise with how much shit people deal with in the United States. Like it's so easy to go into poverty than it is to like be super like rich and successful without feeling like you have to invest in so many things. The thing is
Mm.
you don't have things to invest in those things. So like what do? You don't invest it. You invest in other things that are within your range. So you're kind of like stuck in a cycle of just like being poor and then having a little bit and then being poor again. And then so it's like you get used to that mode of survival that there's nothing else to like kind of
Yeah,
be with. And so like for me, it's like someone who's an alcoholic, like it was so easy for me to be an alcoholic and like it was so normalized because it is hard to live in this world. Like for me, it's like the fact that there's at least even one child abuse case should have been a red flag for the whole world to
yeah.
be like, we're not treating our kids right.
And it's so surprising to me, like as I'm growing older and as I open up and like people open up to me and to us about their experiences, there's so much more child abuse that took place like than is even being discussed. Like I know so many women in my life that have been affected by it, and it's crazy to me to think that it almost feels like there must be a majority because people aren't talking about it.
Yeah.
It's sad. Yeah.
Yeah. When I read statistics about rape, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's like the surface. Because like a lot of people think that
Most people
is
aren't going to report it.
most people aren't going to report it. Most people aren't going to talk about it. But that's the thing, though. That's what makes it so easy to be an alcoholic and get into
Yeah.
drugs and like lose yourself into things that just make you forget those things. And to suddenly like be told like, oh, you're a fucking addict, you're poor, like you need to go to rehab, you need to do this. It's like when you think about it, when you get your life back together, you're just kind of reminded why it fell apart because you don't have that support system that an addict needs. Like I was lucky that I at least noticed when I was getting bad, that I had you to tell me a little too. And I had everyone else around me be kind of like concerned, but they were like, oh, it's just Stephanie. She's just being fun.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I'm not trying to be fun. I'm dying inside and I'm trying to be festive because you guys don't have anyone else to be festive with because you guys look towards me to be festive,
Mm.
and I've made myself that person that way. And so I was lucky enough to like have you as my support system,
'Cause
my
I
family a little
remember
bit.
I remember just when you would drink, like, your behavior changed a lot. And, like, granted, if I was drinking way more, maybe I wouldn't have noticed it. I would have just been like, "Yeah," but, like, at the time, I wasn't drinking heavily because I was still kind of watching out for my like, now
Liver.
I feel yeah, I feel like I drink a little more now, even though I kinda don't want to. But I think, like, back then, it was, like, 2 beers max. Because with 2 beers, I'm feeling buzzed, I'm feeling good, and then after that, I'll just drink water, and if the buzz dies, whatever. But I remember, like, one night like, the next time I was like, "You know, you told me these things yesterday," and you were just, like, baffled. You're like, "What?" And then you mentioned to me that you have a personality with her own name that comes out when you're drunk and that you've already
Teresa.
Teresa?
Yeah,
Okay.
that bitch.
Yeah, I mean, and you sounded concerned. When I mentioned it to you, you sounded more concerned than I was, and that's when I was like, "Okay, well, she must know something else," and you opened up more about it.
Yeah. And like what I liked about you being able to talk to me about that is that you were willing to talk to me about it. You didn't like make me like
I
guess why you were upset cuz
yeah.
I remember.
'Cause I coulda taken like, the things you said, I coulda taken them personal, I feel like, and I coulda and the same with, like, things I might have mentioned to you when I'm, like, dealing with my anger issues.
Yeah,
So it's like, we both have our things that we're working on. But I feel like in that moment, I coulda taken stuff personal, but I knew that he looks like he has a little cloak on
it's like that evil Kermit like meme in the back
him.
of your
Pointing at
head.
the
Yeah.
camera.
It's like buy those
Thumbnail.
drugs, drink that alcohol. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
No, you were just I was just saying that, I guess I could have been upset at some of the stuff you said, and I was more just concerned. I was like, "Hey, well, there's this person that I really like. I'm starting to fall in love with, and like the things she told me yesterday,
Like that.
I don't like them. Like, I really don't appreciate what she was saying." And I just like told you, and like I almost had like second thoughts about telling you because I hear so many things. That's also with like the inner voice. I hear so many things in my head sometimes. And sometimes I think people actually said things that they didn't,
Hmm.
or I think things were, yeah, like just especially at parties and stuff like that, like, and when I'm drunk or when I'm drinking. So like half of me was thinking like, did she say these things? Was I imagining it? And then when I mentioned it to you, you seemed very open to to hold yourself accountable for what you said. So then I felt better, but I also didn't want to be pushy, because you validated the fact that you probably did say what you said, but I also didn't want you to feel like I was upset at you because that's not what I was trying to do.
No, and the way you handled it was perfect because at the same time, if you had been angry with me or like severely like punishing me, I probably would have continued drinking, thinking like, fuck that guy and whatever the fuck I said. He's not even giving me a fucking chance. So I'm going to go to this bar and let myself
Yeah.
have a ball.
Like if I was playing games and I was like, well, if you can't even remember what you said, like, or just
Yeah.
something, I can imagine people doing something like that.
No, yeah. And with the things I may have said, whatever they may have been, like, I probably would have been like, yeah, that's justified. I probably would have been that upset, too. But you were willing to open yourself up and been like, hey, I want to be with you and I know we can work this out. But the thing is, you said this. So let's explain. Let's talk about it. Let's work with it. Because you at least gave me the opportunity to want to be a better person. And that's where our relationship is like how it works. It's like we want to give ourselves the opportunity to be better people by talking about it, but not in a way that's like gonna shame the other person to
Yeah.
the point that they're gonna hate themselves.
And sometimes it's hard. Like, I didn't realize for a long time how much shame I would throw at people with like the way I describe something. And that's something where I'm still trying to change that. Like, there's a lot of it is just like habits of how I say things. Like, I have to change how I go about expressing certain things to certain people. Um, so yeah, like, I think that we met at a time where we were both willing and open to changes.
Yeah.
And like literally if I had met you a year before, you would not have liked who I was. And I might have not liked who you were too. Good. And it's really
Yep.
yeah, it's that's what's trippy too. Cause when we met, I was just like, wow, like 2 weeks ago I had just said I didn't want I didn't need anyone to be happy, that I could be happy on my own. And like I like took that in, and it changed my life, for even if it was just for like a week or two, where I felt like, wow, so empowered. I felt this strength I had never felt before. And then here you go, falling into my life. And then I don't know, like it's powerful.
Yeah, and like 2 weeks before you and I like actually met today, like I was having like such a heartbreaking time because of like having done cringy stuff to get someone else's attention at that time.
Oh,
Like it was
okay.
so bad. I was like, I look back at it, I'm like, I'm so thankful I'm with someone who actually loves me and cares about me because if I had to continue that cycle, I feel like I probably would have like just thrown myself off a cliff.
Oh,
And like I actually told myself like I need to be nicer to myself because the way I'm giving people these opportunities, I'm not even giving myself that forgiveness or opportunities. I'm not even treating myself right.
yeah,
I'm like, I need to tell myself. I'm like, I kept telling myself this over and over. I'm like, I am love. I exude love. And I want love to be exuded to me. And if that's not with anyone, then I'm okay without them because I can love me and
yeah.
exude that love continuously to me, regardless of being with
You
someone.
loving you is enough.
Yeah.
And that's so hard to like. That's sometimes people don't know that they have to tell themselves that. And
Yeah.
it's true. Like you're enough for yourself.
You're enough for yourself. You deserve love. And the way people receive love, like the way we are supposed to receive it or obtain it, it's supposed to be nurturing, giving, kind, like with friendships, platonic friendships, things like that. Like I wouldn't appreciate them as much because I thought they weren't fulfilling that romantic section that I thought was necessary to feel that fulfillment, but they were fulfilling. And the fact that I like would look for that romantic sense to feel that fulfillment, but not with my friends. Like I look back at it and I'm like, that's disturbing of me. Like I should have loved my friends and expressed that love to them. Like not in a romantic way, but in a way that made it seem like we are all deserving of love here and we're all here to nurture each other.
Yeah. I mean, I know in like the straight male world, sometimes it's hard. Like it's so tough just to like be able to tell your friend like, "Hey, I love you.
Mhm.
Like I'm here for you." Cuz like even guys that are comfortable with that, like most of them be like, "No homo." And it's like, "Why do we need to say that?"
Like, we
There's
both
no.
know we're not gay. Why would we need
Yeah.
to say that?
Even like a
Like,
new one with like the younger guys, cuz I work retail, and there's younger people coming in and out all the time. And the new one I'm noticing is, instead of saying "no homo," they'll be like, "pause."
ugh,
And it's like, it's funnier. You're not involving, like, you're
the
not
gays.
demonizing like the gays, but it's still like, it's still like a joke at like your masculinity in a way. Like you don't have to, like, cuz you're still kind of bringing it up, but
Yeah.
it's interesting, yeah.
Like if my friend who was a girl told me like, I think you really helped me today. And like how me and my friends who are girls talk to each other sometimes. They're like, "You really helped me today. You helped me see things a little better and I'm glad you're my friend." And if they all of a sudden like 2 minutes later they're like, "But no homo." I would have been like,
No lesbo.
"Excuse you?" Like
This is homo. We're
I was
homo
like, "Why
friendly.
would you pervert the love you just gave
Yeah,
me with that
exactly.
bullshit?"
You don't
Like
have to. That's the thing. Like,
I'm like, "It's like you giving me chocolates and all of a sudden telling me like, well, that one guy gave me chocolates, but I didn't like him, so I wanted to give you the chocolates." But like, just so you know, it wasn't romantically intentional,
well, I
friend.
like the way you said it though, because it is like a perversion in a way,
Yeah.
where it's like no one was making it that way,
No one
but
needed
now
that
you
addition.
did.
No one
Yeah.
needed that warning, that little like disclosure.
Hmm.
It's like it's
Oh,
unnecessary.
I wanna tie back in because we're getting to about an hour, and I know we want to
We
like keep
should
them
shorten.
shorter,
Yeah.
but I want to tie back in. One saying, we donated blood recently.
Yes.
And I want to get into this more on the next episode, just to talk a little bit, because there's a lot of reasons why we donate blood. And it's been cool just to go in there and meet some of the people that are actually doing the work there. And
Mhm.
like, it's been really cool just to like get to know some of them, and you meet interesting people there in general. But I think it'd be cool to talk about the experience and all that. But I do want to finish off this episode by just going back to like the inner voice.
Mhm.
And what I guess my question to you was, if there's someone out there struggling with their inner voice, um, what's the thing that's helped you the most about understanding about your own inner voice? Like, is there anything you would say to someone? Because I know I would tell people, like, don't always think that you're the one saying those things. Like,
Yeah.
don't always think that you're the one treating yourself that way. Like, it might be, for me, it was a projection of how I thought people saw me,
Yeah.
and I played tricks on my head for years.
Yeah. Like, for me, it's, like, because I have, like, a sort of, like, now God complex, or, like I've
You,
always had, like, a God complex, but they never fed it to me as a kid,
it's
so I'm
because we're
kinda
Leos.
we're Leos, yeah, we have that, like, attention whorish
I am an
personality.
attention whore. I'll be honest. I mean, I used to do so many things in high school for attention. Yeah, I was one of the worst.
Me too. I was really bad. But, like, I didn't want attention, but I still wanted attention in a way. Like, I didn't want the wrong kind of attention. But anyway, so for those people with those inner voices, like, what helped me in this last summer was, like, kinda, like, acknowledging what depression was, and acknowledging that depression has her own voice, and she'll sprinkle it into your voice and your personality by making it feel like that's you.
Hmm.
And, like, during the summer when, when I had left the other job and I wasn't able to do the notary work, to do my little small business that I was trying to do back then, like, last year, is that, like, I had I had to identify what it felt like to be 100% okay and 100% loved and human, to know that the negatives of the voices weren't actually real and they were just the depression and, like, my anxieties feeding myself back and forth. So the fact that I was able to identify that kind of, like, gave me, like, a little spite towards that part of myself, that part of my depression and anxiety, by saying, like, depression, all right, that's where she is, and she, like, has a name now, depression. And, like, now I can punch her in the face and fucking take care of that bitch, cause
Punch your
she's in my
depression in the
head, and
face.
I gotta kick her ass out. I'm like, I gotta fucking kick her ass, cause she's in my head, and she's messing with my thoughts and my energy, and the things I could be doing, and the things I could be having, the opportunities I could have to just make myself feel better.
Hmm.
Not even going out and, like, doing volunteer work or, like, hanging out with your family and stuff, like, just, like, opportunities where you get to tell yourself, like, "Hey, we're here, we did it, we're good." Like, what the fuck are you so worried about?
Yeah,
Like, having that clarity is just fucking nice, and knowing who depression is and who anxiety is, like, you don't suffer with depression, you make depression suffer by telling it to get the fuck away from you, by, like, acknowledging where it is, you know? And, like, that stupid TikTok trend where people are like, "I gotta go take a stupid walk for my stupid mental
that's
health."
good.
It's like, those are your little, like, weapons to fight against it, you know? Those are your little methods to just be like, "Okay, I'm feeling like shit, so I just gotta fold my towels, the
It's
ones that are on the floor, and put them away."
I like how you describe it. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm someone that didn't realize I was depressed until like the last year. I'm like, oh man, I've been in a depression for a long time,
Yeah.
and like it's getting better. Like I'm getting better. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. I feel like you're a huge part of my ability to give that label to my inner voice when especially when I'm in like moments of anger. Those are like when I'm most like triggered, and when my rage comes out without me being able to actually analyze it before I send it out. But last few times where like I'm upset and I'm talking to you, like instead of just saying stuff and kind of being slightly dickish, even though in the moment I don't realize it, like I'm able to like think these negative things and just be like, oh yeah, yeah, and I'll like marinate on them, and I have the self control to not send it out. And then after 10 or 15 minutes, I'm like, that's really shitty to say. Like, that's not the way you should, like, she doesn't deserve that. Like, why would you even think that? Why would you even say that? Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of these things, I'm like, it's almost like I just have to hold my inner mind like kind of accountable for what I know I'm able to do, and like how I know I want to treat people, especially you, and how like the respect I want to have for you, because
Mm.
my anger doesn't have respect for anyone. Like
Yeah.
for some reason, it has respect for like total strangers. And I think that's just like the retail side of me. I know how to deal with strangers that are visibly upset without like sweating it, and I can stay super calm and collected without exploding. But with people that I'm really close to, it's hard. It's hard to not explode, but it's getting better.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you are getting better.
I feel like I've said that so much. It's true though. I mean,
Yeah, we are. We're acknowledging it. We're moving on, and just it's not like a snap where you can just fix everything. It's
no.
like, I'm like, it took you this long to be this fucked up. Like, you can't just be unfucked up the next
No,
day.
exactly. I mean,
Like,
it's like any addiction because I see it as an addiction, like this addiction of anger, this addiction of depression, of like just feeling and like sorry for yourself.
just feeling like you deserve to stay that way.
Exactly, feeling like you deserve to be exactly where you are. Like you, it's so hard to get out of those habits, and you almost like need it once you become like codependent of it. Like once you start reinforcing it, and you're like, no, this is the way I am. It's like very hard to get out of it.
Yeah.
But I'm just glad that there is ways to, and I mean, I don't know. That's part of the reason why I love recording these conversations and just kind of getting stuff out there because I hope that these types of conversations can maybe reach someone that might be going through stuff, maybe doesn't have the support structure that we have had and are lucky
Yeah.
to have. And I hope that they know that they can do it too. You know,
Yeah.
I think most people out there suffer from some kind of anxiety, especially in the world we're living in. We got to look out for each other a lot more than we're doing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's important. You are amazing.
We are all amazing.
You're doing amazing. You got to start believing it. And it doesn't take one day to believe it, but it takes forever and it's worth it. It's better than feeling like shit all the time
Yeah.
and making yourself continue to feel like shit.
And lately, I've been needing to be okay with just being bored and like not having something exciting because I feel like that's actually where most of my like stuff deal like lays in. Like I can't express it very
The
well.
desire of being efficient.
Not just being efficient, but
Oh,
like
okay.
well, being efficient. Like my anxiety gets to me when I know I have tasks to do and I'm not doing them. But then again, the ADHD in me just procrastinates and is like, hey, like I don't want to do anything. And then finally, when I only have 30 minutes, it's like do it all, and I'm stressed. But I meant more in like no, I guess yeah, that is kind of how I meant it.
Mm,
Yeah, that's okay.
yeah, you're doing great.
Yeah, we're doing good. People out there, everyone's doing better. I feel like 2020 was kind of a crazy year. 2021 wasn't like much more amazing, and we're hoping for better things coming up this year. But it's exciting.
We wish you all the best. And I hope you make your day better for yourself.
Be easy on yourself, and tell your family and friends you love them. Don't be afraid of what they're gonna react.
Tell your dog you love them.
Yeah,
Do it.
unless you have shitty friends and maybe they don't. Maybe
Yeah,
yeah,
be your own friend.
be your own.
Or
Yeah,
find better
that's so
friends.
true though. Like for so long, I was not a friend to myself. You know, and it's hard to like to tell yourself those wholesome things of like you're good and you're amazing and you're great and like, but telling yourself that is important
Yeah.
because you are. We all are. And on that note, we'll
Thank,
catch you next time.
thank you and welcome to join. And thank you for joining us at Comfort is a Coffin.
Now we got a thumbnail.
Hey.
Hey, see you next time.
Drink alcohol. Just kidding. Don't